Okay, I was out and got another load of oak, and I will say I'm really glad I got the sideboards. Yeah, it was like a little under 200 uh, for that sideboard setup, but makes it a lot better, hold a lot more, and you wouldn't. You hardly even know it's back there. I mean, it pulls really easy. The only thing, the wheelbase is slightly wider than the four wheeler, so you have to keep that in mind in tight spaces. But that extra width makes it more stable on a side hill, which I had to go down one today. I'm cutting in some pretty rough ground. But with that load on, works perfectly fine. Okay, and the Grizzly has no trouble at all pulling it. No, I was in low range, but I never had to go in four-wheel drive or anything. I mean, it just pulled it. Okay. But I had mentioned, I was going to talk about this sometime, what I had to do to this machine after the last time when it started steaming. I thought could have been head gasket, or the worst case scenario, cracked head. It's not unusual in these newfangled machines that use aluminum heads to crack a head. This dog is getting burrs all over him. Well, I am too. Okay, I'm not talking to you. What it turned out to be, when I pulled it apart, the first time when I got it, it wasn't doing that, but there was no water in it, and it had run very hot. Like my brother said, well, it never added water. There again, it's that hard to get at radiator cap. So it had been run out of water. I knew right away it was kind of serious because there's a thermostat under here, and the thermostat had opened so far trying to compensate for that heat that it actually popped off of the pin that the inner part of the thermostat rides on. So it had been hot. But I had put diesel fuel in here to see if I could get the valve pockets, if the seats would leak, thinking there might be a warped valve. Because when you get something that hot, that can happen. But it didn't. And in fact, when I put it together, it ran fine. But, okay, after I went and run it, then after it got warmed up, I would get that steam. White smoke. Well, these are a pretty complicated casting. You've got 5 valves, 3 intake, 2 exhaust. They're, well, a lot of this new stuff is that way, but a very complex casting. So considering you have a water jacket here, there's not a lot of thickness here. And what had happened is, I think it's this one, there's a crack inside of the exhaust port into the water jacket. Because when I pulled it apart the last time, thinking it was maybe the head gasket, hoping it was just a head gasket, because there again, it's that 3 layers of steel, not my ideal idea of a head gasket. And I had found a head gasket that had the center layer was aluminum. I thought, okay, aluminum's got a little give, maybe this will work. And that's what I put in there, and it works now instead of the solid steel ones, the 3 layers. But that wasn't going to solve this problem. When I took it apart, there was no water in the cylinder, but the exhaust pipe was full of coolant. So that tells me, it's coming in the exhaust port. So the cheapest answer was to buy a head. And the complete head for these actually is not a bad price, considering, like I say, very elaborate casting. And it was from this Nietzsche. Now, it's the same place I bought the cylinder from and the piston. And although they're made in China, I think it's a Japanese company, and they actually make a pretty good product. You know, I was impressed, and it was like $400 for the complete head and the camshaft. You know, this is the head cover with the rockers on it. Now, the camshaft is kind of unusual. These have got, it looks like an advanced mechanism, but it actually is made to push this little, like a ball bearing up and down. What that is, changes your valve timing to drop your compression while you're starting it. And as soon as it starts, then these weights go out and it returns to the normal compression ratio. Well, okay, like say right now, it's stuck wide open. Well, that's no good. You know, these springs are a little weak. Now, the new one that came with the head has much stronger springs, so it faithfully goes back into that low compression mode, because that's their automatic compression release. You know, it just drops the valve timing. And that came, you know, part of the head. So, all right, you know, I'm agreeable to that for $400. I don't know what the regular Yamaha one would have cost. If you could find it, probably quite a little. So that's what I did to fix it, but works good now. But the thing about, you know, these Chinese parts like that, they actually have the manufacturing down very well. They have the metallurgy down very well. Where they always fall down on is the little things, like any switches or anything technical is often very unreliable. But it's a good price. You know, but there isn't nothing I can do about that crack in his head. You know, there's no, like I say, they're so porous, you know, with all them water jackets and stuff. It would be very easy to warp one of these or to crack one of these. I can see where that could happen very easily. And I know this thing had been warm, just looking at that thermostat. But I replaced all that stuff. And now she works good, starts good, and got all kinds of power. It, you know, going up and down hills, it has no problem pulling this thing. But that is the story on that. You know, normally you crack a head and you think, okay, it's going to crack into the combustion chamber. You know, be my first thought. But that's why I was surprised when they pulled it off, and there was no water in the cylinder. Which, you know, if you get water in the cylinder, then you go to try to turn it over and it'll hydrolock. You know, you won't be able to turn it. So this wasn't doing it, but it would do it. Sometimes it would start hard, but the reason it was starting hard was that automatic compression release. Like I say, I think it would stick. So that problem is cured now. I don't know. I haven't tried to start it with a recoil, but maybe now you could. You know, I don't know, because these things, you know, they got a recoil on them, but man, that's a lot to turn over on a recoil. But it works good now. And I'm very pleased with my trailer. Makes wood cutting a lot easier, really. Can snake around in unusual spots. But someday I'll have to pull these valves out of the head and see if I can actually find out exactly where that crack is. But like I say, there's really no repair in that. You know, you try to, you would warp it. But I can see, you know, if you look at there's all these ports for the water jacket, someplace between there and the port itself, and I'm pretty sure it's on this cylinder. But when I pulled the exhaust pipe out, it was full of water. And you can see a slight discoloration in the exhaust valves. But you know, anytime you do that, you compact a lot of openings in one area of aluminum. There's a great chance of something warping or cracking. But it can't be a very big crack because, like I say, when it was cold, it wouldn't do it. But as soon as you got it warmed up, you could get steam coming out of the exhaust. She was cooking. And it wasn't like it was overheating. It was just making vapor. But can't run that way. So it's good to have that fixed. And the $400, you know, it's worth it. I think the cylinder and the piston was like $100. So I still don't have much in the machine, and it should be reliable. The only thing I did order in a spare drive belt, because these have a belt drive like a snowmobile in concept, but it's different. But it's a heavy duty drive. But I figure, okay, this thing has a few years on it. It's never been run hard, but that's the original belt, I'm sure. My brother certainly never changed it. So, you know, it's good to have one on hand just in case the belt should go bad. I don't know what kind of a job that would be. I suspect there might be some special tools, but it's right under this cover. But I think it is like a snowmobile setup, but there is also a centrifugal clutch. So it isn't like a snowmobile will slip. This won't slip when you're idling down. So it's a little, supposedly very good system. They brag about it a lot. So hopefully it won't give me trouble.